It's part 8 of the Crusader states Abridged. Last time we fought some big battles outside and inside the walls of Cairo and eventually captured the Fatimid capital. We also saw a little battle where we got ambushed by some of our traitorous former allies, and that didn't go very well, but ultimately that doesn't matter. Now we're getting back to business. The main thing we need to do is go after the final Fatimid settlement down there in Egypt. So off we go with two armies, and with both of them we just about don't have enough movement points to start the siege. This old annoying situation. There's some way to get around it, I seem to remember, where you move the general and then the army or something. But basically we have to wait another turn before that siege starts, so that'll take a while. In the meantime, I got an alliance and military access with our neighbours, the Leonese, who control Alexandria after my facetious crusade, and I did that so that I could move through their territory and into the grey region to the west, thinking, it's grey, it must be rebels, let's go take it, but we'll see how that goes. While we walk, we've got some more money to steal from Genoa. They're still just giving us stuff whenever I ask them for money in exchange for map information, so we'll keep that going. On the home front, heretics remain a problem. Our regions are roughly 50% Catholic and 50% heretic at this point, so the heretics are stopping us from sorting everything out. But again, we can't take them down because they're too high level, our priests just can't match them, and now I'm thinking about using assassins to take them down, as some people suggested in the comments to part 5, which has just come out at the time of recording this commentary. So yes, maybe I'll be able to sort that out in some way, we'll see later on. Now here's me a couple of turns later, discovering the truth of this grey region. It's grey because the Sicilians are grey and they've cheekily come down here and occupied the place. So that means this isn't going anywhere good. Well, I could attack Sicily, and for a while I thought maybe I'll just do that because it's convenient, they're next to me, so maybe we'll just rampage through them. But the Pope wouldn't like it, I expect, and I was thinking actually let's do something a bit more Crusader statesy. And you can see me here looking at the Moors in Iberia, so they're a Muslim faction and they're going to be at war with the local Christians. We could pop in and help. That seems like a very Crusader states thing to do. I guess technically we should just attack the Seljuks, but I'm quite happy having them as my allies just to counter history a little bit. So we'll continue to ignore the Seljuks and start setting up to send troops over to the other side of the map. But before any of that, we do need to finish off our main enemy in this campaign, the Fatimids. We've now got siege equipment to attack Luxor, but the balance bar isn't that good. All of our spear militia and levy archers don't count for very much, I think, so I'm going to fight this one manually. I don't like that auto-resolve, although that does mean that part of my army will be controlled by the AI again, so we'll see how it does. At least having the AI there means the enemy's attention is divided, and that means we're going to be able to get a couple of uncontested patches of wall to go at right at the start. One of the handy things about doing this is that once you're on the wall, the AI kind of reassesses things, and certain units that were defending the wall just run off, and things get easier and easier the more guys you actually have up on the wall already. We can also do that with our spears, distract the enemy's jabs who were guarding the gate so that we can move the ram up, learning a lesson from earlier in this campaign by the looks of things. Also, here are my Kurdish jabs on the southern wall, who are now completely uncontested. The enemy are just running before them, which is probably the right thing to do against Kurdish jabs. Here we're doing the other thing. We're running in to engage them in melee so they can't throw jabs down at our men. Those are regular spears I'm using rather than spear militia, so they're a bit better and might be able to actually contest Kurdish jabs. I've got some more Kurdish jabs over here on the northern wall. It would have been nice if they could throw jabs down at those guys who were walking past, but it's very iffy. The situations where your ranged units are allowed to fire are poorly defined, so in that case they can't shoot down, even if it says they're trying to shoot down. But I did take note of the fact there's a nice piece of wall just along from them, which overlooks the enemy capture point, and I thought, well, let's go over there and start throwing jabs at all of the men defending that capture point. The jabs on the southern wall have gone to capture the east gate and successfully done so, so now our men can start getting into the town properly. And here's my attempt to throw jabs at the capture point. It started quite badly because the enemy are throwing jabs up at me, and again you can see the responsiveness on ranged attacks is very low compared to later Total War games. It takes a long time for you to prepare to make a ranged attack. So we just eat a whole bunch of jabs, but the enemy get bored and start walking away, and then finally we start throwing back down at them. That was only Jav Cav though. Now they're deploying foot jabs against us, and I thought we could be in trouble in a one-on-one match. We do have the high ground, and more importantly, we have the AI not glitching for us as much as it's glitching for the enemy. They're just running into the wall and getting stuck. So we're going to kill a bunch of those jabs, but not as many as I wanted to actually, since the enemy eventually came up onto the wall and killed all of my jabs, I think, in melee by just overwhelming them with tons of men. I need to actually remember that I'm supposed to be playing this game and go get the rest of my units in to make a proper attack. As I did so, the enemy general started coming towards some of my spears here, and I decided to lure him back towards the eastern gate because we've got jabs up on the gate. I thought we'll lock him in position by forming a schiltrum just in front of the gatehouse. Then we can spam this general with jabs and he'll be dead. It worked well up until about now, when suddenly it went very badly. While we stopped them right in front of our formation, they decided to just trot through the formation. This isn't even a charge, they're just moving through us, not even attacking, and they absolutely slaughter my entire unit. I had no idea either how weak I was or how powerful they were. It might be the latter in this case. So that did not go as planned, and they end up sitting in the gatehouse, so my javs can't really attack them. I had to just send in all of my heavy cav to try and grind through those guys. Not a very nice situation. Meanwhile, I've sent more guys over to this enemy capture point overlook, including some archers, and they can shoot further of course, so we can get more stuff in range. The problem we're going to have is, well, they're levy archers, so this doesn't really do anything, but the enemy have worked out they can just come up here and kill me. As I said, they already went up to kill the javs I had here, and while I wanted to block them from doing this with a spear unit, every time I ordered the spears to go over to the tower the enemy were using to get up, the movement order would just be cancelled. It's some classic old game jank here, so it's just not happening, and we've just got a piece of an out of formation unit stopping our archers getting into melee, which is not ideal. Looks like that enemy general tried to fall back to the capture point and all my men have chased him, so now we've got another fight going on nearby the capture point, with a few of my allies involved as well. Now look at the minimap, by the way. You can see where most of my allied forces are. I did not notice this. I was so focused on the micro. I had no idea what my allies were doing, and I just thought they're probably helping to attack. And indeed a few of their units are here, so I've got reason to believe they're doing something just off camera while I try to sort this out. The enemy have sent javs to attack my archers on the wall. In fact, I think they're trying to attack the spears there, just throwing wildly up at my stuff. But my archers are doing okay, taking them down. And yet more javs have come over to this melee where we've now killed the enemy general. We need to rush forwards and attack them because they've got their backs to us. Very nice. They're currently throwing at my men on the wall nearby. Those javs rout pretty much instantly, but they rout towards the capture point where they've got plenty of their heavier spears. So now we have to play a game of trying to micro cav when there's all these tight corners, narrow streets, spear units all over the place. It's very messy. Here's a fun case of some micro gone wrong. I'd ordered some of my javs to come down off the wall to help out in the fight, but the problem is the closest place they can get down off the wall from our front lines is behind the enemy, and they try to pathfind through them. The whole unit runs through them and dies because I noticed that going on too late, so that's not very good, is it? Another gripe for me to complain about. So yes, my cav are trying not to fight the enemy spears, but the enemy have a lot of spears. I'm really trying to get my own spears to lock them down while my levy archers do the damage, because that's where a lot of our strength is right now. But I can't really get them into good positions. Here was a strange case where we've got some javs, levy archers and cav all in melee fighting an enemy unit from the front. Not sure what sort of series of orders ended up with that being the result, but it sort of works. We hack through the enemy and break in towards the town centre here with these cav, getting to the point when we can attack the enemy from multiple directions. But fighting on the capture point against spears still isn't good, especially with generals who might die, so I'm tempted to avoid it. I really want to get all my archers up on the walls to just shower arrows down to take the enemy out. This would be much easier if we had more troops to lock the enemy in position, so I wouldn't have to use my cav for doing this. But with my ally still outside the town, it's not happening. So yes, we're fighting spears head on with cav, like right here. Luckily General's Bodyguard and our Crusading Cav are really strong, so even with disadvantages it's not a massive deal. One unit's nearly dead, but I'm constantly pulling them back out of fights to avoid anything too dangerous. We've lost the fight up on the wall, as you can see. We've now got no melee units left, up there that is, so I can't use archers up there anymore. The enemy keeps sending men to drive them away, so I had to give up on that. Luckily, just using the cav to take down the enemy's spears is working. We already saw how powerful the enemy's general bodyguards are, and ours are also quite powerful, so yes, we can break through the enemy's Nubian spears. Now I'm going to struggle to not charge into those units in the town centre, because if the enemy do stand still, we can get to this point. We finally get to the stable point in the battle where we can exploit the fact we have loads of ranged units by raining arrows, crossbow bolts and jabs on the enemy stuck in the centre. And once they're all locked down into little melees with my very few remaining melee units, this is fine. The enemy's numbers are now low enough that we can effectively lock them down, and it's just a case of waiting until the ranged units do the work. And this was when I realised that my AI companions aren't here. I think because I had them on shootout stance, which I thought would make them shoot the enemy rather than charge into the capture point, they decided to conduct their shootout from outside the walls, as if it's a shootout stance against units defending the walls, since it's a siege or something. Basically, I think the AI was totally messed up, and they're only now going to attack because I've told them to go on the all-out offensive mode, but obviously it's far too late. We killed the enemy with our own archers, charged him with cav at the end to finish them off, and that's that, but with pretty hefty casualties. What I'm not sure though is whether it would have been more or less bloody for us had the AI actually charged in with all of the units earlier on. Hard to say. Regardless, the losses don't matter too much because these men won't have to fight again for a while. We have destroyed the Fatimid Caliphate, and that's the last of our enemies, and it's the last of our victory conditions actually, except for the region count. We've destroyed the Fatimids, we've got Cairo and Jerusalem, but we need 25 regions to win the campaign. We're on like 17 right now, so we do need to make some major attack somewhere else. And as I said, I've got the Moors in mind for that. To prepare for this new campaign, I spent a few turns just reorganising things, gradually pulling our troops back to the Mediterranean coast and reorganising the armies, retraining units, etc., so that we can get everything ready for a big expedition. And you can see I've already put ships in these docks, and I'm starting to mentally organise which armies are going on which ships, ready to go at a moment's notice. We're going to have something like 4 armies, but in the end it ended up being 3.5 because I didn't recruit enough guys. 1 extra guy's getting onto the ships. This new 14-year-old who's just come of age to be a general is getting right on the ships. 14 is old enough for a crusading here in the Crusader states, so we'll throw him in. We've pretty much got 2 armies that are good, these 2 southern ones, and 2 other armies that are more filled with trash, and this one at the top is the most trash of all of them, so they'll be acting as reinforcements for the most part and doing guard duty, keeping public order good and things like that, and we'll probably recruit more things at the other end, but that's a long time off for now. We need to get sailing, and I say it's a long time because we do need to sail to the other side of the map. That's going to take a while. In the meantime, I was trying to train up a high-level assassin, but the assassin I had constantly trying to kill a rebel up there in Syria missed literally every time after about 4 or 5 attempts. So I just gave up, and I think I forgot about that assassin after a while, so the heretic problem is going to remain unsolved. I also realised I've set sail without taking any agents with me, so we won't have spies at the other end, which is nice and unhelpful, but we're doing it. Got some news a couple of turns later that the Pope has gone and died. He was known as the Peaceful, apparently, so I hope he didn't find out what the Crusader states were doing for him. As a side note, I have this mission here to buy out a merchant, but like with the heretic situation, there are merchants all over the place who are all like really high level, and all the merchants I can recruit are low level, and I actually don't know how you level them up, so basically I can never deal with that problem and I'm just ignoring it. Now back to the Pope thing. Because the Pope has died, we need to elect another one, and I apparently have 2 guys in the College of Cardinals, which I didn't even know, and they can help me vote for who I want to win. The issue is, this doesn't have very much practical effect, because somehow the Sicilians have totally stacked the college in their favour. All the cardinals in the world are from Sicily for some reason. So they all vote for the Sicilian guy, everyone else also votes for the Sicilian guy, and basically we didn't stand a chance. So there's a new pope, and this means we are vindicated in not invading Sicily earlier, because now the pope won't be angry with us. I was noting happily though that he was 74 years old, so I thought he might die soon and we'll get another chance to have our guy run to be pope. Anyway, on the topic of pope stuff, it reminded me we could try and start a crusade to speed things along. So I asked for a crusade against Granada, and the new pope agrees, thank you very much. The idea now is that if I join the crusade with my armies, they get extra movement points and free upkeep I think as well. So that will mean we don't have to wait as long basically to get our men over there. The problem is, as it says there, you cannot join the crusade while you're at sea, so that plan was scuppered quite quickly and I decided to just sail on normally. But it is not the end of that train of thought, because I suddenly realised it's not like in the Total War games where landing armies ends your turn. In this game you can land the army, fiddle about with it, put it back in the ships and then keep going as if nothing happened. That means if we just set foot on the beach, then we can say, now we're crusading, and now the bonus will be applied, we can get back into the ship, and it also applies the bonus to the ships, meaning we can move really far, and in fact we can move much further than it says we can, about twice as far, so we suddenly jump ahead of all the other ships. And yes, this proves to actually have been a good idea. I should have done this from the very beginning to minimise the amount of turns I'm wasting with this journey. The other ships were annoyingly like out in the middle of the sea, so I had to wait 2 more turns before I could get them on crusade mode using some beaches in Sicily. I'm sure we also paid our respects to the new ruler of the entire of Christendom. But yes, we get all 3 armies in crusade mode, and I'm also going to pick up some mercenaries since I spotted them here. That way we'll actually have something more like 4 armies. And by the way, people kept saying earlier in this series that I should be using mercenaries all the time. There simply haven't been any. Down at my end of the map we don't get mercenaries for some reason, but here there's a few, so we'll take them with us. We're not paying upkeep on this army, so we might as well. By the next turn, we've got 3 of our armies in position to begin our attacks. I've got 1 landed already, in comes the second. The third one's actually in those ships off to the left. I just forgot to land them, but we'll land them in a second. These 2 armies, I thought I'd use them to sandwich this little Moorish force, but they phased through me cheekily with the old retreat mechanics. Luckily they didn't retreat very far, so we can take them out with an auto-resolve to get ourselves our first win in our new war. We captured 1 guy and we execute him to look badass, and now we're clear to go on towards Granada, the crusade target. It's a pretty hefty fortress, but it's not very heavily garrisoned, so not too worried. I was checking out the army inside it here, just a few guys, but I noted the enemy faction leader is actually in here, so we've picked a very good target. This guy has some authority. It actually looks like it goes off the scale. There's a tiny bit of the next fist going off the end there. So yes, good to get him caught in this siege. We'll try and take him out. In comes our final army. It won't be able to arrive this turn, but we don't really need it at this point. The Moors don't have that much. We are very much taking them by surprise with this sudden crusade and arrival from the other side of the map, so we've got that going for us. With all my ships, by the way, I'm going to use them to blockade all of the ports nearby, which should reduce the Moors' income and mean they can't mobilise against us as well. No idea how much the AI is just cheating to avoid that, but we're going to pretend to play the game. Our 4th army arrives in the next turn and immediately takes out a force that actually had a general sitting on the beach. I think the general himself survived both of those battles and snuck away, but who knows. And our general managed to get severely wounded, so that went well. Anyway, after all that, we end up with Granada very surrounded. All 4 armies are ready to go and 2 of them have siege equipment. The force inside is too small to resist, so I'll just auto-resolve that. We get a fine result. And in we go. The Moorish Caliph is dead, it says, so that's a nice surprise blow to strike as we arrive, and this means we've won the crusade. This isn't necessarily a good thing, because now we lose the crusade bonuses, but on the other hand, it's going to avoid any antics where we're not moving towards the crusade at some point and our men start to desert, so we're going to play things by our own terms. The Pope is very happy that we helped out with that crusade, paying us some money, and that's a nice bonus on top of everything, because we only really did the crusade to get here faster, just trying to inspire the men. So overall, this invasion has gone very well. Here you can see it says we have 18 regions controlled and we need 25. So we need to capture 7 more things around here. I think there probably are 7 Moorish territories for us to get, but I haven't played any further in the campaign yet, so I've yet to find out. We shall see how this invasion goes in the next part.